Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Seth.
And this is Never TMI.
Where we talk about real things.
And nothing is ever off limits.
Ever.
Never. Okay, guys, today is like,
today we're
dare I say controversial?
Talking about boundaries,
Boundaries. Baby. This has been a hot topic.
Hot topics.
For, what is the actual words of that?
Hot pocket.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that it? This has been quite, again, controversial. Just because, like, I don't know. Whatever.
We'll
get into them.
Controversial though, because I feel like that's where breakthrough happens.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. But whenever I say what our boundaries are, that, mind you, have been set in stone for literally probably 4 years now. And, some here and there that we're like, oh, we should probably do something about that.
It's definitely an ongoing thing.
Yeah. But some things.
Something will come up.
Yeah.
That's like, wow, this is an issue.
Let's set a boundary.
Let's talk about it, and we'll set a boundary for it, because that can't happen again. So
exactly.
It's
so we literally
ongoing.
Yes, we literally listed
process.
them out.
Yeah. For
you guys, and we're gonna kind of, some are self-explanatory, some will kind of give you a little bit of context, and then we just kind of want to a little disclaimer. We want to say a couple things. So one being, these boundaries don't equal trust issues, and that is something that can be a little bit misconstrued. I think when you're setting boundaries, it's like, well, I don't necessarily need to do that because I trust him, or if I trust him, I shouldn't need to do this, or if he trusts me, we shouldn't need, this shouldn't need to be a thing.
Right.
Boundaries are literally so that you don't cross a line.
Yeah.
It's not think of a literal boundary. It's not that isn't the dangerous point. So you do trust each other. You do whatever. It's when you pass that, that's when things get a little murky. So our boundaries, it's literally to be above reproach. And that is a concept that we have just seen prove incredibly successful time and time again, just from married couples, mentors, books, and then personal experience too, certain things that we're okay.
Yeah, you got to know yourself. You got to know your strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes, these might sound crazy to some people.
They will.
And maybe they are, but you got to really think about what is your relationship worth? Mm-hmm. And so for us, that's been, again, Jackie's had a great vision from the very beginning that I'm on board with now, but just I want a great relationship. What does that look like? What is our vision for that? And to get to that point, there has to be some set of boundaries to say hey, this is acceptable, this isn't. And so really boundaries foster a healthy relationship.
They're so necessary. And not even just in marriage, with your parents, with your friends.
If you're dating 100%. Someone, pre-marriage, engaged, you need boundaries in your life to keep you accountable to who you want to become, because that's the thing with humanity. It's I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve just by naturally not doing anything about it. And so a boundary is a way to kind of keep you accountable and to put you on a path that's going to get you where you want to be. And I
think too, I'll never forget, I asked my dad, actually, and my parents have been married for 30, I think over 35 years. And not only that, because marriage or relationship is not the bar. It's a healthy, thriving, beautiful, fun relationship. It's that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. We're not just looking to last and make it, because anyone can, so you just stay married. But a last beautiful, out of this world, thriving relationship. Those are the people I talk to. That's how did you make this happen? And I'll never forget, I was did people think you were crazy? Because they had some serious boundaries that I was wow, I thought it was pretty crazy. He especially when he was coaching. He coached in the NFL, and so there's women. There's my mom was clearly not there. For many, many, many hours of every single day, and he always kept his door open. That was just one thing. It was like all these coaches, like everyone had their door closed. It's your workspace, you know what I mean? And he was literally head coach, and he had his door open no matter what at all times. And so women would come in there, and he would keep the conversation short. And like, these are things he would communicate to us, just like, just because that's who he is. And I remember asking him not too long ago, I was like, did people ever think you were like crazy? Did people ever just like really judge you hardcore, think you were crazy? And he was like, absolutely. Absolutely. But like, look at, like, I don't care because I have this beautiful product to show for it. It's like, I don't care. Like, people thought I was crazy my whole life for this, this, and this, but it's like, what does their marriage look like? Like, I'm happy. I'm unbelievably fulfilled and satisfied. I don't have to worry about this, that, and the other. I would rather be with my wife than anyone on this planet. We're best friends. It's like, there's so much that comes with like the sacrifice. Like, sacrifice is necessary, but like, I'll never forget that. It was just like, so who cares if someone thinks your boundaries are crazy? Like, I literally couldn't care less. It's like, I get where you're coming from, and I'm sure it looks crazy, especially in today's society, but like, I know at the end, I mean, our marriage is better for it and will be, and that's what we'll have to go off of. So that's kind of like our heart behind sharing, just so you feel like, I don't know, so you can get an example of like, what are some boundaries. A lot of people are curious about what our boundaries are, but
yeah. And I think even beyond that though, it's not because the game of comparison, I think, can really come back to bite people. And so it's not about comparing yourself to other people and comparing our relationship to other people's relationships, but it really comes down to like, what is going to make it work for you. And so like, we'll jump into it in just a second, but like, all of our boundaries are agreed upon
and very personal to us.
Yeah, they're very personal. They're very, individual.
They're catered to us.
Yeah, and so we have to set the boundaries that's going to help keep us accountable. And again, like we've talked about, it's based on our own struggles, based on our own strengths and weaknesses, and that's not the same for everyone. So like, more than just comparing your relationship to maybe someone else's relationship that you look up to, really, I would challenge you to look at yourself, look at your own relationship. What do you want that to look like? And then how do you get that? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. So our boundaries, again, come from, us talking about, hey, this made me feel a type of way that I'm not really okay with.
Yeah.
And I don't want her to feel that type of way. And there's times that we definitely disagree on how someone feels, but for the sake of this relationship, we have to come to an agreement at some point on some terms. And so a lot of that is sacrificial in terms of, if this makes you feel some type of way, as crazy as it might make me look doing it or carrying this out, I choose you over doing something, and that's going to make you not trust me, feel insecure, and that is going to have a negative impact.
Yeah, it's not like the other person has to be doing something wrong in order to set a boundary. It's like, I know myself. I can be insecure and this, that, and the other. So like, let's, work with me on that. You know what I mean? Instead of like, no, you're doing something wrong. It's like, I just am not there yet. I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel confident. I want to feel secure, but I don't yet. So until then, can you keep me in the loop on this and whatever? So let's get into it.
Yeah. So these are just some of our boundaries that we're going to share with you guys.
All the boundaries we could think of, honestly, that we have.
Yeah.
Right.
In a short time frame of just kind of writing them down.
Yeah. I mean, some that are kind of like set.
Main. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the main things that stuck out to us.
Okay. So number one. Let's see. What's number one?
Number one is
okay.
Probably the biggest boundary from day one was cutting ties with all past relationships.
Yes.
Any ex, anyone that you've ever had feelings for in the past, like there has to be a
Closed door.
severing of
Separating?
ties.
Separating? That's not a word.
Severing.
Okay. I
But
was like,
with a V.
that's not a word. Okay.
Severing.
Severing. Yes.
There's
Agreed.
got to be a severing of those past relationships.
And I do want to say, like, I know there's 100% going to be people out there who's like, no, I'm best friends with my ex and whatever. And that, like, every situation is so different. I've talked to so many people who are like, oh, my best friend's a guy, and we'll get into it later. But, like, again, we are passing zero judgment whatsoever. That might work for you and your spouse, or in your relationship, you and your boyfriend, you and your girlfriend. That might be 100% fine. Again, this is just us and kind of like what we stand behind, and there's reasons for that, and some of these things we'll go into. But cutting ties completely with all past relationships for us was just a big, like, we just didn't want any kind of, I don't know. I think this is one that's a little bit self-explanatory, but it's like I'm not going to be like communicating with my ex-boyfriend, you know. We're not following each other on social media. We're not like keeping, because there's so, especially where we were like sexually intimate with those people, that adds a whole new layer of like, there's emotions there. We're human. We're literally human. There's emotions. There's just, we just don't want to get in like this murky little area of like, oh, remember this, like mentally, like our brains are so stinking hardwired for emotion, all that kind of stuff. So we just, and that was an easy one for us to do. And we were just, it kind of for both of us made sense and just made us feel a little bit more like, okay, like I get it, So that's one.
And I think you also have to ask the question, like, what is the wise thing to do? And yes, this might not be the case for everyone, but like Jackie's saying, if you've had physical relationship with people of your past that you're still in connection with, like it it's not to put it past anyone that, like, if I'm in a relationship that's worth committing to, if you're pursuing a serious relationship with someone, like, ask them how they feel about that, because maybe they're
Yeah.
not going to say anything about it, but that might make them really uncomfortable. And if you really care about them, I think it's worth to ask the question to say, hey, if I talk to this person, does that make you jealous? Does that make you feel something?
Totally.
Because that's going above and beyond to try to put yourself in their shoes, and we both would feel that same way.
Absolutely.
I also,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go.
No, go.
I feel like that's a great point. Like, I feel like Seth his personality, he's never going to be like, I kind of always wanted him to be the jealous type. I'm like, aren't you jealous? Like, it's like, aren't you going to like fight for me? He's not that way. He will harbor it. Like, it will happen, but it'll just be in his mind, where I'm very vocal and like expressive. He's not. So like, I could be doing something that like, it takes a while for him to be like, this isn't my favorite, and I don't know how to tell you, so I'm not going to say anything, but like, it'll come out in different ways. So definitely, I think that's a great point to just kind of like check in and be like, I mean, if you're in a relationship, you're going to have to learn how to like, I'm going to elevate your feelings and literally put you before me. That's just the way it should be. So it's like, I'm going to ask you, and if you don't love it, even if I feel like it's 100% fine, there's so many things that I'm like, I would never XYZ. But if this makes you feel more comfortable, I'm 100% willing to do it. And that's literally love. So.
And again, it's also coming down to the concept of like protecting your heart. And I think, so many times we think that like, oh, this person cheated on someone, so that makes them a bad person. But like, is it really that much worse if someone is continually thinking about something in your mind or in your heart, even though they're not acting on it?
Totally.
Like, would you want your spouse to be, I don't know, while we're doing it, do you want your spouse to be thinking about like a past lover? Like, exactly. How would that make you feel? Like, these are some of the things that you like while
we're doing
talk.
it, you mean sex while we're having sex? That's like our
Yeah.
code word. We're like, oh, do you want to do it tonight? Like that's, I mean, like everyone's different, but I'm like, I don't know if they'll know what that means. But like, that's just, we
So
say
it's
like,
like,
oh, do you want to do it tonight? But anyway,
yeah.
just
So it's like the
clarity.
concept of protecting your heart
Yeah.
and
Being
being a
above
keeper of
reproach.
your spouse's heart. Like, okay,
Yes.
what's going to make you feel
Yeah.
loved, trusted, trustworthy of me, and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Okay. Another one. Communication with the opposite sex. This is a little spicy one that people, like I don't know. I get it. It can be a tough one, but again, this is just us and this is just
they know that though.
our boundaries. I know. I just
So
want
we
to
just
like
gotta
I
rock
don't
it.
want anyone to feel like this is the right way and the way you're doing is wrong. No. We're just literally communicating our boundaries, communication with the opposite sex, including including like me or like say if Seth is on a text thread or not a text thread, if like a woman texts him for work or something, if it's not weird, like he's kind of in a little bit more like open and free um work realm. So he's in like real estate, investing, all that kind of stuff. So like it's a little less like you're working with this one person all the time. But there are women involved. And so if a woman texts him, he will either let me know or he'll include me on the thread if it's like, if it makes sense, it doesn't always make sense and that's fine. But like, um, it's just like a way of keeping each other accountable. Like he's not just like back and forth, like, oh, this is for work. It's like, I'm going to keep you aware of like what's happening for me. Same thing. If like, you know, if I don't know, that doesn't really happen, but if a man were to text me just personally, I'd be like, oh hey, just by the way, whatever, and it doesn't need to be like this frantic crazy thing, but it's just like we're keeping each other in the loop at all times. If there is like communication with the opposite sex, period, it just that's eliminated so much crap in our marriage and so much like like I don't know, it's like we're good, that's already like we just we know what's going on. That's not like something we need to be like, is there anyone at work that like I don't know about that it's like, nope, we are very aware.
And I think the other thing too is like obviously there are some people who have situations where that is a
Totally.
non-negotiable. Like for my work, I have to communicate with these people who
Yep.
happen to be of the opposite sex than I am.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, like I don't know, sometimes Jackie I'm thinking of one
What?
specific instance where there was a female that we were working with for a real estate transaction who one would consider to be
She was pretty.
attractive.
She was
She was
I
an
mean, I
attractive
looked her
female.
up. Is that crazy? If
But that generated additional feelings on top of it, and so just like
because it's like you're not only a woman, it's like, okay, you're literally just like it just in person hanging out. Like I don't know what your conversation looks like. It's like that. So needless to say, these boundaries were helpful because it's like I know there's no guesswork. It's just like, okay, that's kind of scary. That's a little scary, but like I mean, I'm so thankful even that. Like even the fact that we have these boundaries, the communication was so open to where I could literally ask him like, you know, is she attractive? It's like he already knows. It's like bare minimum to keep me involved. So like I don't have to just hound him and be like, is there anyone lately who you it's like, no, we're aware. So it's like, I just want to let you know she's around my age. And I was like, okay, or is she like attractive? Well, I'm like trying to gauge, and you can always tell when something's a little different situation, where it's not like a 70-year-old woman who you don't have to worry about. But like if there's a little bit more extra communication and you're kind of like, okay, like is she cute? Like what's the deal? And he's like, I'm not attracted to her whatsoever, but like she's an attractive woman. And it's like, okay, like not the best thing to hear, but like it is what it is. This is life. You know what I mean? So like I was just that's just an example of like I don't know where the boundaries come. And it's like, okay, great. Like, we already know how to handle this. We already know like what to do. I know you're not going to cross a line because we have these boundaries set in place. Whereas, if we didn't, if I would be like petrified. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Whatever. It's like, what if she does this? What if she thinks you're attractive? And what if she's like trying? It's like, nope, we already have this long list of boundaries that are set in place to like set us up for success. So it was like, okay, like good to know. Moving on,
Yeah. And I guess my point though is if it's necessary in your situation and you would choose to adopt this as a boundary, just always disclosing like
Totally.
whenever you're communicating with them, it's like, oh, this person texted me today, this is what we talked about. But then also keeping it, strictly business if it's a business relationship or
Mhm.
whatever it might be, but keeping it strictly to this is the only thing we're going to talk about, and I'm only talking to them because it's required of me to do
Yeah.
my job or whatever that might be. So
And that leads us to our next one, which is one-on-one with the opposite sex and keeping business.
one-on-one. Oh, like in
In
person.
person, like in the car, like again, sometimes it's a non-negotiable to work one-on-one. Like there's nothing you do about that sometimes.
But we really try to avoid those situations.
Yeah.
And these are times when it seems crazy.
Literally, and we're aware of that.
I had a job when we were in California, and we only had one car at the time.
Yep.
And I worked on a very secure military base. And if Jackie needed a car in a day, she would go and drop me off at the front gate. I would check in, and then I would have to walk
a solid mile.
It was probably a mile to our job site, which was fine. Like, I didn't mind
a little walk with your lunchbox.
Yeah, but there was one time, like this is how the boundary came up. There was one time there was a lady who was working with the same company on the job.
A lady, as in she was younger.
Yeah, she was probably within 10 years of me. And I'm walking and she offers me a ride and I take the ride because it's like, yeah.
I'll take anything I
don't feel like walking at 6:30 in the morning right now. And so later I think I get home, I tell Jackie, somehow she finds out. And it's just like, oh, that doesn't sit well with me. Like you're in a car with
it's like a personal space. Female. Mind you, this is a boundary my parents have always had. So like that on top of it was like, ooh, I don't love this. And there's a reason for that. And I don't even know why it doesn't sit well with me, but like, I don't love the one-on-one in the car. It's like, you guys could have been listening to music like, oh yeah, like I love this song. Like it could have been absolutely nothing, but it could have been something. And that was what was like, oh, and mind you, I was a lot more insecure at the beginning of our relationship just because of
this was probably
the whole thing,
not too far after
the lying and all that kind of stuff. So there was very little trust there.
So yes, and that's I had to earn her trust back,
but still, it's not like I would like go back on that. I feel like very passionately about that now. Because people are people and you just literally never know. There are too many like stories that we hear all the time from like people that you're like, what? Like, no way. Like he cheated on her or she cheated on him or like they were so like it happens all the time because people are people. It's not like they're terrible people. It just means.
And that's the point of a boundary though. It's like, I'm putting this rule in place so that I'm not putting myself in a place of temptation to mess up on or to jeopardize something that I've been working so hard to maintain or to hurt someone that I really do care about. Like that is the point of a boundary. It's not, again, to restrict your freedom. It's really so that you can live in the freedom of these what do you call it? I don't want to keep saying boundaries. Yeah, parameters. That's a great word. Within these parameters that you set up for yourself so that you can be successful and so that you can obtain and achieve.
And also feel free and like that there is like trust and security in your relationship. Like,
Because it's honestly more freedom for me as well. Like knowing that
yeah,
if I was to get in a car with a female for Jackie, knowing that that makes her uncomfortable, and then knowing now I have to tell her that I did that,
yeah.
it's like immediately I'm hot and bothered because like I'm dreading the fact that
Yeah.
now I know I have to tell her that
Yeah.
this happened, and I know that she's
Yeah.
not even
And
that
again, we agree on these things. It's not like he
uh
thinks I'm crazy and I think he's crazy. It's like
but I can
we,
live without that extra stress if I just
yeah.
choose to say like thank you, but today I'm just gonna walk and
And he did. And I literally appreciated that so much. And it did in a time where I was so insecure and had like very little confidence, just and there was not a lot of trust in our relationship. It felt like that went so far for me, just knowing that like he was willing to do that, and that just improved our marriage alone. But either way, that still is a rule today, period. Next one, social media. You know, we Seth doesn't really have social media, but like if he did, we kind of talked about this because I'm like, there's so many people who are like, my husband's following so and so, or whatever. So we, if Seth had a social media, and we've talked about it, if he had
and
an
I did
Instagram,
I used to have social
he used
media
to.
and as a
Yes.
way of just severing ties with past relationships and
Yeah.
communication of the opposite sex, whatever. That was kind of a big um what do you call it, just kind of like a
I would say like a
an
step.
act
Yeah.
of
It
like
was
saying,
a,
hey, I'm not
because that was kind of the
for
only
this
reason he
anymore.
had it, that like he didn't need it for work, which some men do.
Yeah.
So it kind of, which again, and I did not ask him to do any of this. Like, I don't want you guys to think I'm psychotic, but I did not. I mean, that was like him, his doing his,
I
uh,
just felt like it was the best decision for me personally
yeah,
and for our relationship to get rid of. I think I literally had Facebook and LinkedIn, but
yeah. If he did have social media, we kind of said like, and agreed upon the fact that he wouldn't, he or I don't either, like unless there's like a reason. And it's a little different because it's, I don't know, I guess it's not that different either way. We're both not following like people of the opposite sex just for no reason. So like if I don't know the person, or if there's no like family tie, or and not even just family, but it's like, say there's like this health guru or something that I'm like able to learn from, like that's fine. But if I'm just following someone, I'm like, oh, he's handsome, like no. And then for him, like unless it's family or there's like a reason he's following these people, like it would just be a no. Like there's no reason you need to just be like seeing other women for no reason.
you know,
Especially if they're like attractive, it's like what's the reason? Like what do you need to be seeing in their everyday life that applies to you in any way? Um, so yeah, that's a pretty self-explanatory one for us. And then the next one is passwords, having every single password to
yeah,
everything.
yeah, and that's always that's just living transparent with your spouse.
Yeah.
So, like,
I can't remember the last time we like
yeah, that's
looked at
probably a
anything.
minor one, but it's like if I ever, and even not even just like knowing the passwords, but if I was to ever say like, Jackie, can I look at your phone? Like, she's never gonna be like, no, like
Yeah. And this,
obviously that would be
yeah.
so sketch in and of itself, but it's like there's an open relationship to the things that I have are also yours, and just we live in an open marriage or an
Yeah.
open relationship to where you have the freedom to ask me
Yeah, like you have
anything and
access.
just
It's like, what am
I
I
will
hiding?
disclose what. Yeah, I'm not trying to hide anything,
And
so
that's a
that's
red flag. I always feel like that's a red flag if I'm like, oh wait, no, hold on. It's like, for what? Like no, then something is off there, and or something's just maybe not as like open or transparent as like it probably should be. And so we have each other's passwords. Not It's not like we're like, oh, here's this password and here's the, but just to like email, cell phone, all that kind of stuff. And again, I think it's been years since I've like gone through his email. Like I can't remember if I've ever done that before or if I would, but like just transparency, I think that's helpful. The next one.
So yeah, we'll kind of transition to more like relationship
Yes.
boundaries here. So we do not use the word divorce in our
Yeah.
relationship. That's a
That's a no. We just don't.
non-negotiable.
Unless I am dead serious and there's something that has absolutely severed.
And
like unless
that would
I'm
really be just being unfaithful. Like if a spouse was
exactly.
unfaithful.
Yes.
But even still, and I know we've briefly talked about this. This would be an interesting topic that maybe do a podcast on in the future, but like divorce and
Yeah.
there's still people who work through
Yeah.
relationships where people have been unfaithful.
Unfaithful,
And so
absolutely.
it's just,
And that's something it's hard to speak on because we've never been in that situation. So
but for us,
yeah.
we don't use the word divorce because, when we entered into this covenant relationship, we were both committed to the relationship, knowing that love is an action. It's a verb. It's not just a feeling. And
Yeah. So
so
when
it's
that
something
feeling
that
goes
takes
away,
work.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it is what it is, and that's what we committed to. But
Yeah.
I mean you enter into marriage with so little information. So little information. Like we hardly knew each other. So
But
it's
even if you
not
knew the person, I heard this recently.
mhm.
Someone was like, I've been married to 5 different people, but it's been the same person over. I
Yeah.
think they were married for like 50 years.
Yeah.
But the point was like, every, decade
Yeah.
roughly, like you are becoming a new person
You change
every
and
day. You're
grow in your
changing, you're
style.
growing, you're
Yeah.
like, the things that you like and dislike are changing
The things that you
constantly.
believe, the way that you
Yeah.
think about things, your
And so, like,
personality.
you are not the same person that you were 10 years ago. Like, if I think back to who I was in high school, I'm not, yes, I'm the same being, but like my tendencies, the things I like and dislike,
Totally.
like my habits are totally different now than they were then. And so,
And they'll continue to change. And it's like it that I'm committed to Seth Gibson,
yeah, not
whoever he
who I married on.
yes. Yeah. No, it's like if
Whatever.
yeah,
wedding
Lord,
day
praise the
was.
Lord.
Thank God for technology and reminders.
Oh
Let's
my gosh.
just throw that out
Yeah.
there.
Okay, next, no sleeping in separate beds. That's just it doesn't happen. Again, I have a sister and it's funny. They sleep in separate beds all the time because she's like he snores and she literally sleeps like never because she's the most sensitive sleeper ever. So like it again, so different for everybody. For us, like we don't, I can handle snoring like my other sister who does snore, Brooke. She literally snores all the time and everybody was always like, Jackie, you can sleep with her. Like if we went on trips, it was like Jackie and Brooke sleep together because Jackie's the only one who can handle her snoring. So like obviously we don't have anything like that to where whatever. But if we're in an argument, I would say specifically in an argument. Like obviously we sleep in separate beds if we're traveling or whatever.
Do I snore?
Yes, Seth, you literally snored last night.
Ouch.
Loud. Like it's loud. But I'm fine with it. That's why you married me. So I tune it out and it's fine. But yes, especially when you're sick, woof. But I know I can too. I talk in my sleep. It's kind of crazy. But anyway,
I can't believe that.
We don't
Shock over here.
We don't sleep in separate beds, and that just is to keep like it's like, look, I can't stand you. And now will we be on the opposite corners of a bed? Absolutely. If he falls asleep, I'm like, I'm raging. All I see is red. But like, what? It's just not necessary. So we just kind of keep. It's just I don't even a way to be like, I still love you. Like I literally hate you, but I love you. Okay, next. What's next?
Next is we don't talk poorly about our spouse to other people.
You can still seek advice.
And so, yes. And so that's just, and I would say, especially with Jackie's situation where she has
a million siblings.
4 other sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're so close and they talk all the time. and it's really hard to keep a secret in this family.
There are no secrets, essentially.
But even with her sister, she's done a great job of you know at least to my knowledge, which I do trust her. She's done a great job of not throwing me under the bus when I
Yeah.
know that I'm acting in ways that is just unacceptable. And
Mhm.
so she's always tried to protect our relationship and put our relationship first, even above relationships with her sisters and her siblings that she's had for many more years than we've ever even known each other. And it's because she prioritized our relationship,
Yeah.
and so I really appreciate that from you. And that really is more just to protect, it protects me, but it protects us. And
I think too, like, you know, it it's okay. Like me and my sisters, 100% we'll get together and we'll talk and kind of discuss. But I think and also seek advice. It's like,
yes,
I'm never afraid to be like, maybe you should, try this or try
right,
that.
yeah, and it's not to say that you can't talk about issues,
Totally.
like that is, I would say that that's necessary,
But if
but
you're just
like,
getting together to like degrade each
yeah, if you're
other,
just gonna gossip and say like, "Wow, Seth sucks at this," or "Seth
sucks.
did this," and just like it's always in an edifying way, and it's not that you can't seek counsel or seek advice on things, but even in those moments,
Yeah.
it's not a degrading conversation
And
to
it's
throw them
noticeable
under the
too. Like
bus.
it kind of raises the bar for like other people to be like, oh, like she respects her spouse. Like she's not willing to just like rag on him and then they're able to be like, I don't know, the cut it sets the tone. It's kind of like when you get together with like some girls and all that's happening is like you're just tearing other women down. It's kind of just like, let's talk about something else. You know what I mean? Like it kind of sets the tone and then you're all just like talking crap about people and that's not okay. So like when someone is willing to just raise the bar a little bit of conversation, like my sisters too are not the type of people like that are just like we kind of know it's like a known fact that we're not just gonna like sit, and I won't let my sibling, they won't let me, like half the time we're taking the spouse's side because it's like no, like whatever. So it can also kind of raise the bar of conversation and kind of for the people that you're talking to, just show them like, no, I do respect my spouse and therefore I won't let you talk crap about them either. It's like, yeah, we're frustrated. We're in an argument or whatever. But like, even yesterday, as an example, my sister called me and was like, I'm just so frustrated and here's what's happening. And it's like, I can give her like some advice and also like, she can confide in me and feel safe and know that it's a safe place because I'm not going to sit there and be like, he does suck, because it's like, well, you love the man. It's not like you're not coming here to like for us to just like hate on your husband. So being able to like give advice and all that kind of stuff, it just, I don't know, raises the bar a little bit is my point. But
And it's interesting too is like as we've done these boundaries over years,
mhm,
it's interesting because you then will start to actually pick up on other people. And again, it's not to judge, but like
yeah,
I can think of conversations I've been in where I'm talking with people and you hear the way that they're talking about their spouse and you're just like,
they're like, oh,
wow, like
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it just makes you
Or,
aware and
it's
you're like,
just
oh, I
like
feel bad, like,
that that sounds really bad, or and it just kind of is a telling sign of like your relationship is really struggling.
yeah.
And
And
you
then
know
we're human, so it's like it's hard not to judge because you're giving me so much to judge, and it's just like then I
yeah,
have to watch myself and not be like he does really stink. Like that's annoying, and it's like I have to be like, okay, no, 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 So it's like it's even if the people I'm talking to are wonderful people, like they're still human. My sisters, some of the best women I know, the best women I know. They are still judgmental. They're still people. They're still women. They're still whatever. So it's like, it's just to I don't know, kind of help their hearts too, and help them to be
hmm
their best instead of giving them so much to be like, yeah, he does suck. Um, Okay, next is, we don't really have like a time limit rule, but it's like we deal with our conflict. Trying not to go to bed angry. That is something that we, full disclosure, definitely don't have down. So we can still go to bed frustrated.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like, I mean, I'll say at least someone says sorry, at least. It's not like
Yeah, it's like
I can't
I
stand
think
you, good
our
night, but like,
boundary is
yeah,
that conflict is never resolved or
yeah,
over until it's been talked about. And so,
yes,
and I know just from growing up, my parents, their relationship is like, you know, not to put them on blast or anything.
yeah.
If they hear this, I love you
Love
guys,
you.
but it's also, not to say that it's right either, but there would be days,
Yeah.
maybe even weeks without conversation because it's just harbored,
Bitterness.
bitterness and
Yeah.
anger because someone got offended for something, and
Didn't talk about it.
that just really drives a wedge in your relationship. And so it's like, yes, I think, like Jackie said, this is probably the one that we struggle with the most.
Yeah.
And I would say our ultimate goal is to never go to bed upset with one another. And that's, it takes two people. So, like, I might be okay, but Jackie might not be. And so, there's a balance there of like, okay, if I know she's not okay, but I choose to go to bed, you know, and
Then
that's,
I'm upset with him. I'm like, I'm not okay. Like,
yeah,
at least apologize or
yeah.
talk about it. But it happens
But
all the
there's a
time.
responsibility for
Yeah.
her too to like say, "Hey,
To
I'm not okay with this,
communicate.
so I need to address this because
Totally.
I also want to go to bed
That's
with
not to
peace."
say though that like the next day, I mean, typically the next day is going to be like the good conversation instead of like, well, I'm sorry. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I still can't stand you, but okay, thank you. So it's not like it has to be resolved before you go to bed, but just like at least ending the day on like, I love you and
Yeah.
we're in this together. And like, I'm not just going to let this roll over and roll over and roll over. And then because those feelings are there and they need to be like dealt with so you're free from them so that you can like
Right.
move on and be good with each other.
Yeah, the point is that you're not just like harboring these feelings and you're adding layers upon layers after argument that over time you're just going to explode. Like
Yeah.
you want to resolve conflict in a timely fashion and not carry the burden of, you know, hate or what's the
Yeah.
word I'm thinking of? A grudge.
Bitterness.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't
Yeah.
want to
A
hold
grudge.
grudges towards your spouse. And so
Yeah.
that's really the heart behind that.
Okay. Next. This is probably the last couple when it comes to like our relationship, and then we'll get into like sexual boundaries, I would say. Um, just to end out these couple, if conflict escalates to yelling, then we just are not going to discuss. So we're not just going to get into a yelling match and like disrespect each other and get crazy. Like
Mhm.
if one of us starts raising their voice, we're either like calm down, we're not going to communicate. So like I definitely am the one in the relationship that can get more passionate, aggressive. I try not to yell, but it's something that I struggle with. I've always struggled like since I was a kid. My sisters would literally think I was insane because I'm just like, it's just the way that I communicate. I'm a very, very passionate, and for some reason, I feel like talking louder gets my point across better. I could just be so aggressive, and so I'm. It's something I'm constantly working on that I've gotten a lot better at. But like, if I start to raise my voice, he's like, "No, we're not talking right now," and that it's like the beautiful thing about boundaries. Like you set a boundary, and the other person like there's nothing I can do about it. So like he can sit there and just not respond if I'm like, no, I am going to yell. It's like I have to calm down, and then we'll
Because
continue to communicate.
yeah, because I know too, like when Jackie is yelling at me, I'm not listening to her. Like I
He
will tune her
shuts
out
down
and then
so
I'll
hard.
shut down, and
Yeah,
it's just like
it's
you
not
could say
productive.
the truest, most important thing, but I'm not gonna hear it
Yeah,
because of the way that you're talking at me. And so like um it's definitely, it's kind of on the other person to say like, hey, like this is at a point that's,
yeah,
I'm not gonna put up with this the way that you're talking to me. And Jackie's using herself as an example, but it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of up to the other person to say like, hey, like I'm not
Yeah.
going to allow you to talk to me in this way. So I'm setting a boundary of
Which
when
is
you can calm
healthy.
down,
Yeah.
like go calm down and then we can talk about it. But, you know,
It just keeps it from getting crazy.
yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah.
No arguing in front of the kids. You can still disagree. Like, it's not
Yeah.
like you can't like have a back and forth conversation, but like, no arguing. We don't argue in front of the kids. We try our best not to. Like, sometimes we can dish a little sass to each other,
Mm-hmm.
but your kids notice it. Like, Kennedy will straight up be like, "No, mommy, like what?" And we're like, "Oh no, we're fine." Like, the other day, we were just having like a funny conversation, and I think we were just like relaying a or something like, and we were like, "Oh no, we're just talking," but you could tell it was like, "Oh, I can see," like it's a different tone. And she was like, "No, mommy," like, and it was like, "No, we're literally just having a conversation," but they just know and can see everything. And so we just always, and that's something my parents always did. Like, we could tell there was tension, but like they would never just sit there and have an argument in front of us. And I always really, really, really respected and loved that because we felt secure. It was like, like, we're here. You know what I mean? So like, it's almost uncomfortable too if you're just gonna like have a little like, again, disagreement is fine, but if you're gonna like argue in front of us, it's like, okay, this is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we just try to not do that.
I think to that point though too, it's like even Kennedy, she can kind of like take sides. Like
Totally.
the times that we have done it, it's like, oh, like I side with mommy or daddy because like, yeah,
and she didn't even, she's 3. It's like she doesn't know anything.
Like, and so really it's to protect our relationship with each other and then also to protect our children from, a bias of like, because
no, mommy's mean or
we're
daddy's
human,
mean.
like we're not perfect. We are gonna argue. Like that's part of a relationship. And
it's healthy for a
yeah,
relationship.
and so it's not that we're trying to hide that from our kids. Like they know that we get in arguments and we disagree on things, but limiting, you know, the effects of that and the exposure of that, I think is really the heart behind that as well.
And then the last one for the kids, having to do with the kids, is agree upon disciplinary actions for the kids and let each other know before doing so. Number one, it helps each other to calm down. And it just kind of keeps us in loop. So for example, if Seth is like, okay, I'm going to discipline her, he's able to calm down for a second and not just like respond out of anger, but also I know, like I'm just aware of like what's going on, what's happening, how was the day, how are things going? Like we both work, and so it's helpful for me to be like, okay, like she had a harder day, so like I'm gonna need to be aware of that. Like, I'll have a little bit more grace for her. She's gonna go to bed a little earlier. Like, it just kind of helps us to stay on the same page and be like, I had a very different day than you did. So like, you have no idea. So, even if Seth is gone the entire day, me being able to be like, the day was okay. She this, she that, she got in trouble for this, whatever. But if we're like both home, we kind of try to like express to the other person, like, I just letting you know, like she is going to get in trouble for this because whatever. And it gives us a second to process and also the kids a second to just like, we're not like responding out of anger.
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, to wrap this up, we're going to kind of end with our sexual boundaries, if you will. I think these have been incredibly helpful and important. So I'll let you go for it.
And I hope that you guys can see too as we go through this, like we're talking about issues that are relevant to us. And again, if you go back to our first full podcast, we kind of explained the story, but there's issues of me lying, there's issues of porn addiction, and
drinking,
and so like
just dishonesty overall, but like these especially are very catered to us.
So like that is why we have these boundaries. And again, our challenge to you is not to just take these because that's what we do, but to look at your relationship, to know your differences, to know your strengths and your weaknesses, and then to establish really just an open communication with your spouse or your significant other to allow for accountability in your relationship. That's really
Yeah,
why
from
we're talking
outside
about
people
these.
and with each
Yeah.
other. And just, yeah, discern like what's going to work best for us.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. And that's why, like, we love our boundaries. You know what I mean? Like, they're,
We love them because they are molding us into the person or the people that we want to
and
become.
our marriage, our
Yeah.
relationship, like, it's
Yeah.
the one that we want. You know, we're headed in the right direction. And that's something
Yeah.
that we always want. So,
So I would say our first one for, sexual boundaries is really discerning entertainment. And what we mean
big
by
one.
that
Yeah.
is, you know, we're not going to put ourselves in situations where we're watching, you know, X-rated movies. I'm not trying to put myself in a situation where I'm watching a movie that's got sex scenes, nudity, like just because I know myself, I know my past, I know my struggle with pornography, and again, I'm trying to guard my heart for Jackie and towards Jackie. So, like, what is your relationship worth? And I think the first example that comes to me is The Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I've heard so many people,
Hmm.
it's funny how many people say that that's such a great movie,
And he
but
won't watch it.
I can't allow myself to watch it because of what I
I
know
have
is
begged
in
him
it.
to watch it. I mean, not begged him. Like, I respect his boundaries for himself too. Like, I love it and respect that. Like, he's like, no, and I've like let it go. But I'm like, Seth, it's such a good movie, and we can like pause it and whatever. And he's just like, I don't need that. So very respectable. But like I don't know. I think it's important to know who you are and what you struggle with. And that is something in his past that he struggled with big time. And so it's just like, it sounds so crazy and so like spiritual and probably kind of lame, but like it is what it is. And, you know, I think like, I don't know, like it's funny because I can like picture people saying these things. And I would just, in my mind, it's like, man, that's so lame. Like nudity, like, so what? But like, I don't know. I think you're the coolest guy I know, and it's
Thank
not
you.
lame. It's really respectable and like it is what it is. It's like that's something it like for him to know himself like that. And for me, of course, like if there is like nudity and something, like he'll close his eyes and I think that's great too cuz like no matter what, I don't care if I looked like I don't know, whoever is amazing and attractive and the best body ever. Like him looking at like another pair of boobs is like not gonna be my favorite thing in the world. And so it's just like to keep him above reproach, especially in that area, and for me to feel secure. Like women just really need security. It's like I need you to think that my body is enough, sufficient enough for you. I need to feel like you're attracted to me the most, and that's not to say he will never not be attracted to another woman. It happens all the time. I'm sure. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but like it happens, and there's men I'm sure that I will be attracted to, or that I have been attracted to within this marriage. It's what you're like doing with it, or if you're acting on it, or if you're like, oh, I'm going to continue to look at this like woman's boobs on the screen. Like I don't know. It's just that is just dangerous territory. So that is just something like you got to just know what for you and like there's things for me that I've never seen 50 Shades of Grey. I know that sounds really dumb, but like I think I think we were like dating when it came out and I was like, you and I aren't having sex, so like I would love to watch this, but like it's just something I just knew, or even romantically, like, and I haven't that hasn't been like a massive issue for me, but like thinking about like I don't know, sometimes women it can be like I can like super compare. What's really funny is like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or which
Mhm.
one? The Bachelorette. Seeing men just like drool and die over these bachelorettes, I can tell you I come home from like bachelorette night with my sisters and I have like an attitude with Seth because I'm like, you don't want me as bad as these people want her, you know? And it's like, no, duh. They're on literally a dating show. They don't know anything about each other. They're not, they haven't been married for 5 years. They don't have 2 kids. So you just have to kind of discern. And will I stop watching The Bachelor? Absolutely not. But like, I can be aware of like, this is maybe something I should be mindful of and, you know, not come home and just compare and all kind of stuff. So just know yourself and set a boundary there. But the next one's Covenant Eyes. He has an app. I mean, I can let you speak to that because, like, I don't really 100% understand it. But why did you get the app in the first place? And then,
So yeah, Covenant Eyes it takes the place of like your web browser for
so instead of like Safari, it's
right.
Covenant Eyes.
And with my past addiction to pornography, this was an app that allows for accountability for whatever you search. And so the way it works is, it's a subscription. So it's a monthly subscription. I think it's $15 a month.
Yeah.
Roughly. And you essentially have an accountability partner or partners that you can add to the account who get updates weekly to see what you've searched, and it'll also block content that would be questionable. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of settings that you can set in there as well that I don't quite remember. But I use Covenant Eyes still, and the I really have one accountability partner left who actually doesn't even use the app anymore, but I know that they're on there, and I know they still get my updates. And it's not that I struggle with pornography anymore, but it's like I ask myself the question, like, what is my relationship worth, and is it worth me putting myself in a situation where I could fall back into these old habits?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's like, even if you just open up a web browser online and the articles, the pictures that you're immediately exposed to, it's like, no, I'm gonna just choose to pay the $15 a month, even though even though that might seem like a waste of money or something. But like, to me, it's worth it for the relationship.
Yeah.
It's worth it for me to protect myself from keeping my heart from lusting.
Wandering off.
Yeah. And so it's just like, what is your relationship worth to you? And so that's kind of why we put this on the list as well.
Yeah. That's a good one and highly recommend, especially for like just men. You can like have kind of like you said, like partners sort of. So like accountability partners where it'll notify this person. Yeah, yes. Men and women. Sorry. Next, personal pleasure. That sounds so weird. Always disclose. So like he's not, taking care of himself, I should say, sexually, without like letting me know. I think it's kind of a dangerous slope. And then same for me, like, and it's fun. Like if we're apart from each other, like if I'm out of town or he's out of town, like we'll kind of like, we'll just let each other know. It's like if I'm like in the mood or something and he's literally not there, I'll shoot him a text and just be like, oh, I want you. Like and then, things will go from there, I'll say. Yeah. But like, it's never like, we're going to like do that on our own and then like never say something. Even if like, there's been times that he's like not in the moment, he's not saying like, oh, hi, Jackie, I just want to let you know, whatever. But like afterwards, he'll just be like, oh, by the way, I, did this. And
I think this really came up when, when we first moved to Dallas. We moved because there was a job transition for myself going into coaching where I was gone for like, months at a time, essentially. And, it was kind of just a parameter that came up through that experience of like, we're married, but we're not seeing each other for literally months. Like, what do you do in these situations? And so, that's kind of where we came to the agreement.
Yeah, we're just like, let's just let each other know.
Yeah, and the other thing behind it though is like, I'm letting you know because you are the person that I'm thinking about in
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing. It's not like, hey, by the way, I'm over here looking at porn. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not acceptable. But
And side note, something that like kind of helps in that area to make sure is both of us have like pictures and videos. This feels a little explicit to say, but it is what it is. It's the truth. Um and we'll like I would say like I don't know, several times a year like update those pictures and videos and like we have like Seth has like a little private folder in his phone and I have mine. It unfortunately it's not like a private folder, it's just literally in my images. But like we'll have that of each other. So like literally if I am in the mood and he's like at a meeting or something, it's like I don't know, like I got some to look at that's already mine, you know what I mean? So like just a little, if you don't have that situation happening. And it also just helps to like make sure each other is the source of like the whatever. You guys get what we're saying. Um Drinking, always communicate. Like again, it's not like, hi, I'm just calling to ask if I can have a drink. It's just like, hey, I'm having a beer, just letting you know, like if we're not with each other. Again, this was something in our past that kind of wasn't super like transparent and open. So that's why for us, it's something that like we just let
Yep.
each other know. Just, I like to come home and he's like a little tipsy or something. It just like never felt right to be like, are you like okay? Am I talking to Seth? Like what's happening here? So we're like anytime we're like not with each other and we're like having a drink or something, like obviously not like if we're like I literally went to a bridal shower today. Like I'm not gonna be like, hey, just let you know I had a mimosa. Like no. But it's more so if it's like Friday afternoon and we're not together and there's literally no reason that we would need a drink, but he's gonna have a drink or I'm gonna have a drink. It's like we'll have a drink, but we'll just kind of like keep each other in the loop and just be like, by the way. But again, that's kind of a more like personal one just from our past. Um, and then what? I think this is the last one, or
yeah,
no, that was the last one.
it was
We
the
just
last
have
one.
um,
So yeah, I guess as we wrap this up here, probably just a couple tips to consider is like boundaries are only going to be as good as you are. Boundaries are only going to be as good as you are as good as keeping yourself accountable to them, if that makes
mm-hmm.
sense. So like if you have no accountability to yourself for what you say you're going to do, like
They're pointless.
yeah, your boundaries aren't really going to do anything. But when you commit to something or when you say you're going to do it, then you have to follow up on that personally. And I think the flip side is also getting accountability outside of yourself.
Yeah,
So like,
absolutely.
and really, we would suggest having accountability of the
Your
same
same
sex.
sex, yeah,
Someone who really knows you, and
or can get to know you.
yeah, and you know, quite frankly, a lot of people probably don't have relationships like that yet. So I would challenge you to find those relationships. Hopefully you do, and that's something that you can um, kind of just lead, and hopefully kind of reciprocate as well.
Yeah,
But take initiative to say like, hey, like I want to be more accountable to this, and these are things that I struggle with. Would you mind if we talk about these, or if
yeah.
even if I just had an open line to communicate with you at any given point, any given time to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or "I I did this," something that habits that you're trying to break or not do. Um, so really having, being accountable to yourself, but then also having external accountability that you are open with and
That
can
usually
share
there's
those.
just like an added layer of like I have to tell someone this. Like
Yeah.
I um have to like let so it's it I mean that's what accountability is. It's just like if I'm going to tell someone I'm going to run a marathon, there's like statistics that it's like way more likely to happen if you actually let people know, because there's people you're accountable to. It's like, I said this was going to happen. I told people. So there's like this, so the fact that like there are people in my life, if I were to do so-and-so, not only Seth, but, other women that I'm accountable to, other women that I am under, or mentors, or marriage counselors, that it's like, come literally Sunday this weekend, we have another marriage counseling session. And it's like, we're going to have to let them know, here's where I messed up. Here's where I need help. And it's just someone outside of yourself that can kind of help. So yeah, this was a longer one, but like,
yeah, so it's kind of, I hope that makes sense to y'all.
Yeah.
It's probably a little deeper. Hopefully it wasn't too sporadic. We tried to kind of categorize the topics.
Yeah, but those are our boundaries.
But
and
those are our main boundaries that we really try to live by and abide to, just for our relationship. And again, the purpose of us sharing with you, and even this podcast, is really our desire for other people to strive, or not to strive, but just to have a vision of having a great relationship. And that's our vision. We hope that that's the same for you.
And so, also just to share with you, like, I don't know, like
the realities of it.
Yeah, we've gotten these tools from like other people who have wonderful relationships. And so we're definitely not like a pillar of a wonderful relationship. We just are people that have like sought out and implemented these tools that a lot of people don't have. So it's like, we want to take these tools from other people.
But we didn't know about them.
We didn't know. So it's like, whoever doesn't know, like, that you need boundaries, this is your sign. And there are some of ours. And, there's different people we've talked to. Some people have boundaries that we're like, oh, that's just not for us. Or some, are like, oh, we need that. That would be so helpful. And some we've come up with on our own. So we just always, again, just want to be as real and open, as vulnerable as possible with you guys. And we just really, appreciate you listening. And if you ever have questions too, like, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or to whatever, wherever you can find us, go for it. Because we really do care. Like, I don't know, like, we're all in this together. So thank you for listening in, but that's all we got for boundaries today.
Yep. So that's all we have for today on another episode of Never TMI. Again, I'm Seth.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are signing off.
Peace out.